Hello and welcome to Unity Church on the Mountain from my home. The title of the talk today will be You Are Light. But before we begin that, let's start this talk by affirming together our opening statement. There is only one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God. And just knowing that there is a child within all of us, an inner child, and we are surrounded by children, both the ones that are close to us in our lives and all of the children in the world, and all of the inner children in the world. So keeping this in mind, that there are no exceptions to this blessing, let us affirm together the children's blessing. We love you. We bless you. We behold the Christ in you. We accept you just the way you are. Walk in beauty. You are divine. Without exception. Breathing in and releasing. And another breath. And relaxing as we release. We go to that inner place. That secret place. And affirm together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Leave us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So now just take a moment. Continue to breathe and relax. As we breathe together, our bodies become more relaxed. And as our bodies become more relaxed, our mind becomes more still. And we remember the truth of who we are, that we are spiritual beings, that we are light. We all partake in that divine flow from Source, throughout creation, through us, and back to Source. And we continue to breathe, and we approach that silent and still place. And remember, we remember gratitude. There are so many things in our lives that we can be thankful for. But in gratitude, there is no thing. We are just grateful. And it is in this spirit of gratitude that we say thank you, and so it is. Amen. So the title of the talk today is You Are Light. But before we get started with that, let's think about the exercise that we had to work with, that we had to play with throughout this week. I've been calling it spirit breaks. Every hour, we're to first remember, and then when we remember to take our spirit break, we affirm the truth of who we are. We bring ourselves back to center, using whatever tool out of your spirit toolbox that you care to use at that moment. So we get two things, at least, out of this exercise. We get to move back to center. We get to feel that divine presence, and we get to raise our vibration as we remember, because that's number 2. We remember to remember. We remember to remember who we truly are. We remember to remember who each person we encounter truly is, without any exceptions. We can remember you are light. I am light. We are light. So, rhetorical question here. How did it go? Can you think back and remember through the days about how many of the hours that went by during your waking time did you actually remember to take a spirit break? And I don't bring this up to put any feelings of guilt out there. It's just to look back and reflect and say, well, I can do better. I can remember more often. And you will. The more you practice it, the easier it will become to remember, and the easier it will become to go to that center. This isn't something that has to take a long time. If just that simple affirmation, I am light, you are light, we are light. Was that 2 seconds? So start with the deep breath and make it 3 seconds. And then continue with what you're doing. And just notice the difference as you do, because I'm sure you will notice a difference. So that's spirit breaks. I don't think it would be right if I didn't answer the question myself. So I'm going to tell you, I was surprised. And what surprised me the most was how often I didn't practice my spirit break in the hours. So most days, I would probably say, and this is round figures, I would be lucky to say that I remembered to take a spirit break 4 or 5 hours through the day. And if you consider that I sleep 8, which sometimes I get 8, sometimes only 7. So that's only a third of the time. But I'm not beating myself up about it, because the times that I did remember felt so good. And I know that as I continue to practice taking spirit breaks, I'm only going to get more and more efficient. I'm going to remember more times than I don't, eventually. And it sure is a fun journey to get there. Because really it is about the journey. and not about the destination. So let's go back to last week, and we spoke about the double slit experiment, where the experiment was to shine light onto a blank slate that had two slits cut into it, very small, and then what happened on the photographic sheet behind it. And we found that what happened to the light depended upon whether or not there was an observer present. When the observer was the sheet at the back, we saw that the light went through both slits and interfered with itself and made an interference pattern going up and down the length, which demonstrates a wave property of light. We also found that if we put an observer at the slit so that we know which slit the light went through, the pattern on the back changes. And we get two bright bands behind each slit, like you would expect if light were a particle. So light is this waveform, this cloud of probability, this cloud of potential, until there is a conscious observer. And by the act of observation, that waveform is collapsed and the light must decide which slit it's going through. Or the observer happens at the photographic paper and it condenses then into a single photon prick on the paper, and as they add up, they become interference patterns. We also said that this happens with atoms too, not only with photons of light, but with individual atoms. And that's what we're made up of. We're made up of atoms. I didn't mention it last week, but it also happens with photons. With electrons. We talked about photons, but we didn't speak directly about electrons. Remember, electrons are the cloud of little particles that fly around the nucleus of the atom. Electrons, the flow of electrons, is what makes electricity. It's what makes the light bulb come on. So those are electrons. Electrons have another interesting characteristic for us. Some of them have a state that's called paired. They are in an intimate relationship with one another. And in their pairing, you see, one of them is said to be up paired, another down paired. And what that means is they have complementary spins, so that if one is spinning clockwise, the other is spinning counterclockwise. Now, electrons, just like the photons, are in this waveform state, the state of potentiality. We don't know what they are until we observe them. We don't know where they are. We don't know which direction they're spinning. So there's electrons in my shirt. We can imagine that there's a pair of electrons, these paired sets, and one of them is in my shirt. The other one could be as far away as the other side of the universe. So in our thought experiment today, let's picture that there's one in my shirt and that there's another one in another galaxy far, far away. Now we can take some measurement tool and we can look very closely at the one that's in my shirt. And when we do, its waveform collapses and we find that it's got counterclockwise spin. Now here's the rub. And I'll say this right now, Albert Einstein had a problem with this. Immediately, when we determine that the electron of the pair that's in my shirt has got counterclockwise spin, at that same exact instant, the electron that is in another galaxy that is paired with this one collapses its waveform and has clockwise spin. Albert Einstein called this spooky action at a distance. He said, God does not play dice with the universe. In quantum mechanics, we call it quantum entanglement. Now, everything is energy. E equals mc squared. So you take the mass of it, multiply it by the speed of light squared, which is a huge number, and tells you how much energy is concentrated in that mass. We are huge in energy, each of us. We are light. You are light, and I am light, and we are light. Think about that. Think about divine order as Charles Fillmore taught it. The Father, the Son, and the Spirit. The Father, the source, divine mind. The Christ, the ideas in divine mind. And then the Spirit, their expressions, that Spirit, Comforter in us. We are that manifesting end of divine order. It reminds me of the collapse of the waveform. Mind, ideas of mind and their expressions. And we are that expression. We had a conversation around the kitchen table at my mother's house just yesterday. And one of the things that we talked about was this idea of determinism or predestination versus free will. If you listen to my talks and go back through and notice how many times I say we have choice, you might say, hey, he's definitely for free will. And then we talked about, the ideas of predetermination. If God is all-knowing, then how can God not know already? And I know it doesn't make sense to our minds, but I know with my heart that both are true. We have everything in divine order. And yet it is ours to choose. We say we are co-creators. We are the expressions of God in this universe. But remember who God is. God is not some being outside of us on the cloud. God is within us. God is within our bodies. And we live and move and have our being in God. Our small ego brains just don't have a chance. We just can't wrap our mind around something like that. It's one of those divine paradoxes. It's why we say that God is ineffable, cannot be defined. But yet we continue to try. Why do we do that? Because we want to follow in the footsteps of our Master Wayshower. And we want to realize that presence within us. That Christ, which is the perfect potential that's in all of us. Now, what has that got all to do with quantum entanglement? You know, if you look back at my talks and if you listen to the prayers, you will see a common thread. That when we raise our vibration, when we go to that higher place, when we are at one and we are expressing that Christ through us, we have an effect on everyone around us and on the entire universe. And that is quantum entanglement. That is our hope. Paul tells us the Christ in us, our hope of glory. And not us individually, but us humans. All of us. Our hope of glory is that Christ within. And when we allow Christ to flow through us, we raise our vibration. And we raise the vibration of everyone around us. This can be scientifically measured too with the techniques that HeartMath is putting in place. And not just with individuals, but with collective consciousness as well, with their global, I can't remember what it's called, but it's got global in the first name. So we're not talking about hocus pocus. Quantum entanglement is a real thing. And so is this heart coherence. It can be measured. But when we know that it's not just something that someone's telling us, but it actually is measurable. It can be repeated through experiments. I think that helps to wrap our mind around it. Some idea like this that just goes contrary to normal everyday experience. So as we continue through our days this week, let's continue to take spirit breaks. It only works if you work it. But if you remember to remember and affirm, I am light, you are light, we are light. Taking that deep breath along with it, it only takes a few seconds, and you've had a spirit break in that hour. I would like to also point out another thing. If you've been using a clock and the chimes on a clock or the striking of the hour hand, try not to. Try to remember to remember. Your hour doesn't have to start when the hand is straight up. Your hour can start anywhere in the clock. And it really, you can almost forget about the hours and just do it. Just have that experience. Remember to remember and affirm the truth of who you are. You can use any tools in your spiritual toolbox that you're wanting to practice right now. From the Moses Code, I am that I am. Or just as simply as you are light. Just as simply as I am light. We have more extensive tools in our spiritual toolbox. There are talks on the welcoming practice that's been a continuing theme because it keeps coming back to me. But I'm going to say this. There's another theme that's been coming in here. And is going to be coming through me real soon. But I've got a lot of practicing to do. A lot of playing with this idea. But it all comes from that divine order. Mind, idea, expression. Source, Christ, Comforter. The Trinity. And the Trinity not used as a person or to define a person, but a process. Because isn't that what's really embedded in this idea of mind, and their expression? The condensing, the flattening out of the waveform. How everything is in potentiality until the observer, consciousness, and it collapses out in the consciousness in this material world. It's just so interesting. But I have so much more to allow my unconscious mind to work with before I can try to bring that out here. But it is coming. It's become my practice to share a song, and so I will today. I will say this, that the song I wanted to share with you is not the one I'll be doing this morning. The song I wanted to share is actually copyrighted and not on Empower, so we really don't have the permission to use this song on the internet and broadcast. So I'll be doing a song that I wrote that works very well in this case, I believe. This song is called The Gospel of the One Word. The One Word. This word is coming from the first verse of the first chapter of the Gospel of John. And this word that is translated as word is in the Greek logos. And logos is a very interesting and very, very, very mysterious type of a concept. And it really implies the ongoing creation that is happening around us and through us all the time. Creation is an ongoing process, and the logos is a word that tries to convey this idea of not only an ongoing creative process, but also that image of source that is going throughout all of the tendrils, all of the branches of the tree, from source out to each one of us. So we are created in that perfect image. And it is that image that is projected, you might say, through this whole creative process, through the creation itself. See, this is one of those ideas that you just have to let go of trying to wrap your mind around it and just be with it. You can observe it. It's all around us. And when you open your heart, open to that type of knowing that comes from heart, that comes from allowing the mind to drop into the heart, then we can see that. So without further ado, we're going to sing the song, The Gospel of One Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. All things were made by Word. Without Word was not anything made that was made. In the Word was life, and the life was the light of man. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Word was the true light, which lights every man. Word was in the world, and the world was made by Word. Word was in the world, and the world knew Word not. Thank you so much. And let's close with our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love. The power of God protects us. I am the power. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. Remember your spiritual breaks, and we will be together soon. Big love.